Right. In this video, we are going to be talking about phonemic awareness, and I'll be demonstrating some of the ways that you can do some phonemic awareness activities in your classroom, but I'll also put online for you some websites where teachers are using phonemic awareness with their actual students. So always like to start by having some objectives, and these are the objectives we're going to be thinking about in this particular slideshow. We're going to define phonemic awareness and distinguish it from phonics. This is a really important distinction. I hear way too many people confusing these two ideas. Also, you're eventually going to have to take the RECA, and on the RECA, you're going to need to know the difference between these two things. We'll talk about segmenting and blending in phonemic awareness and knowing what the difference is, and also I'm going to demonstrate something, and then I want you to be able to demonstrate a lesson using manipulatives to identify first, last, and medial sounds in a word. So I'm going to start here. What phonemic awareness is talking about is the sound or structure of spoken or written words. So it's just the sound, and it's actually it's based in oral language. So it's when children start to first learn to talk, it's their hearing words and their understanding that a word is a word. That's a really important part. It's about how sounds create words, and words can be broken down into sounds. It's also about rhymes and alliteration and all that wordplay. So when we think about when children first are getting nursery tales, nursery stories, nursery rhymes, that's what they're called, nursery rhymes. Jack Sprat could eat no fat and his wife could eat no lean. Those kinds of stories that we used to tell kids and read to them, that kind of poetry, was really helping to develop their phonemic awareness and their understanding of how language works. Now, phonemic awareness is kind of broadly under this idea of phonological awareness. And phonological awareness is this idea of how many words are in a sentence. So if we said to our children, that is a brown dog over there, can they tell you how many words that is? That is a brown dog over there. That's 7 words. And if you don't understand why that's something that's relevant, think about when you're listening to a language that you don't speak. When you hear that language, can you tell where one word ends and the next begins? I was raised in a household where my father was born in Iran, and he is fluent in Farsi. That's the language they speak in Iran. My mother, however, was born in America. She is not fluent in Farsi. And I'm not fluent in Farsi. I never learned. When I listen to Farsi, to the language that my dad speaks with his family members on that side of my family, I recognize that is Farsi. I recognize some of the words that I hear once in a while, but I wouldn't be able to tell you where one word starts and another one ends. I can't tell what those syllables are. Syllable, that's not 3 words, that's 1 word with 3 syllables. I can't recognize that in Farsi. So think about that if you don't know why it matters to know what a word is. And then also rhyming. Bell, fell, mel, pell, just being able to understand how those words are the same. And children love rhymes. Children who have phonological awareness love rhyming. They love alliteration, where everything starts with a T or everything starts with a P. So all of that is related to phonological awareness, and all of that kind of goes back to that first week of topic about having stories read aloud to children and talking to children and playing with language. Phonemic awareness is a little bit smaller, has a lot of overlap with phonological awareness. In phonemic awareness, we're not so much looking at words and syllables anymore, but we're looking at individual sounds. We're looking at first, last, middle sounds. And that's basically what phonemic awareness is all about. It's all about only sounds. And in both phonological and phonemic awareness, it's about hearing and isolating sounds in words, whether it's syllables or sound. Now, really important here, and this is where we're differentiating from phonics. In phonemic awareness, there is no print. There is no print. There are no letters to look at. There are no letters to write. There are no letters to identify. Phonemic awareness is only about what you hear. You can do phonemic awareness with your eyes closed. So if you close your eyes right now, I'm going to close mine, and I say cat. What are the sounds in cat? My eyes are still closed. What are the sounds in cat? K, a, t. All of that I can do with my eyes shut. I can do that in the absolute pitch dark because it doesn't matter. You don't have to see anything. You just have to hear it. So, phonemic awareness, you can do it with your eyes closed. Whereas phonics, you cannot, because you actually need to be able to see the letters. All right, that is a really big deal, by the way. So keep that one in mind. So next, kind of going onward, we want to talk a little bit about stretching. So one of the things that teachers can do is just stretch the words out. And it's good when you use sounds, like the sounds that are listed here on this slide, that don't have, they're open sounds. A, ah, they don't have an end to them. Some sounds do. T, p, d. Those sounds have stops. Does that make sense? So in phonemic awareness, when we're first starting to work on stretching and blending, we want to use sounds that are open so that we can keep on saying those over time. So in stretch segmenting, I'm going to say the word very slowly, and I'm going to use a hand gesture, and I'm going to have the student repeat. So I might say the word man, and then all the kids together, you can do this with me now. Man. What word did I just say? And then the children are going to need to be able to say, oh, that was man. And in stretch segmenting, we can start working even on how many sounds were in there. Man. How many sounds were in that word? Man. So that's how stretch segmenting can go. And then we're going to talk about stretched blending on the next. So we're going to kind of take all of that and identify the word. So I might tell you the word man. Now let's say man as slowly as we can. Man. Or lamb. Okay? That's stretching. That's segmenting. And that's the kind of wordplay that we do with kids. Notice there were no visual aids for that. There were no letters that you needed to look for that. That is something you could do in circle time or in your center without any materials at all, except a list of words that you're going to work on. So next we're going to talk about stretched blending. And I think that it's really important to mention here that we want to place those words in the context of vocabulary. We don't want to have kids working on words that they don't know. And there is a side case to that, nonsense words in phonics, which we'll talk about in another week, not now. But we want, when we're working on any word play or word work, we want the kids to know what those words are because that gives us a chance to double dip. We want to support meaning making in all of these activities. And that's going to be supportive of children who are learning English and also children with language disorders who are having trouble just learning their primary language. So when we're doing stretched blending, first thing we would do, we would have these pictures. And I would say to the children, this is a picture of the sun. And we could talk about that, right? That's kind of an odd picture. It's the sun. It's the sun, it's setting over the ocean. And that's what you're seeing right here. So have you ever been to a sunset? And you can have this whole conversation with your students. Have you seen the sunset? Have you been to the ocean? And all of that is helping them develop their language. We have another one here, and this is a picture of fog. And you see that fog, that's that kind of gray, it's wet, right? Like we've all been in fog, and this is the conversation you would have with your children. That here, living in Sonoma County and in the North Bay area, often in the morning we have fog that we experience, and you can't see through it. It's a cloud that has come down very close to the earth, and it can be kind of cold actually, and it feels very damp. And so that is a picture of fog on some trees. And then this last picture here, this is a picture of a lake. Do you see how there's a lake down here? And that up top, there's a mountain range, and the lake is reflecting the mountain. And so again, a bunch of different vocabulary that you can be working on with your students while you're also working on blending. So once you've introduced those photos to your kids, then you can tell them, I'm gonna stretch a word, and I want you to point to the picture that I just said. So if I say fog, listen to me again. Fog. Which picture is that? And then the children can point. Sun. Notice in that word, all of the sounds were open, and I could just keep on going. Sun. Which picture is that? All right, good job, everybody. Let's do one more. And the one more we're going to do actually has sounds that are closed. They have stops. Oh, I'm sorry, that one does not. Lake. Lake. Which one is that? Do you notice that I was repeating the stop sound? K, k. So that is the idea there, is helping kids just practice pulling that word open. And then we're going to practice saying the word in a short way. Lake. 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 And again, it might seem unnecessary, but all of this is helping to support kids in developing their phonemic awareness. And this is going to slide right into phonics, and we'll start talking about that next week. And here we're going to talk about next different ways of isolating and segmenting. And I'm actually going to just introduce this, and then I'll make another video in which I demonstrate some of these things. But we want to practice isolating phonemes and then segmenting. So if I were to say to you the word lake, lake, what's the first sound you hear in lake? And the student should be able to say that first sound, lake. What's the sound? Lake. That's a l. Perfect. That's l. And then we could do final. Usually you start with first because that's the easiest. Sometimes you start with last. For some kids, a final sound is easier. Lake. Lake. Notice I'm also using finger gestures because engaging more modalities is going to also support children in their learning. So listening to it is really helpful for some kids. Saying it is helpful for other kids. And using fingers is helpful for other kids. And so if we do all of those together, we're going to get the needs of all the kids that we've got. Lake. What's that last sound? Lake. That's right. That's lake. And then medial is the middle. And it's usually we work on first, we work on final, and then we go to the middle because it can be harder. Lake. Lake. Which does this sound? A. Perfect. Notice another thing with phonemes. You all know that lake has 4 letters. L-A-K-E. But in phonemes, it only has 3 phonemes. O-A-K. I think O'Connor in her book used the example of fish. Fish has 4 letters, F-I-S-H, but it only has 3 phonemes because the S-H is a phoneme. It's 2 letters that make one sound together and you cannot separate them. Shh. In that, phoneme, you cannot hear an S or an H. Shh. Same with TH. PH. Okay? So that's one phoneme. Sh. 3 phonemes, 4 letters. So don't get all up in your head about how many letters are in a word, because kids who are working with phonemic awareness, they don't necessarily know what the word looks like anyway, because again, remember, no print. None. So we can isolate phonemes, and then we can also do segmenting, onset, and rhyme. That's something that we talk about. Onset, k, at, cat, at, mat. So that's kind of how segmenting goes. And we can segment sound by sound. So I'm going to quit right there. And in the next video, I am going to just show you a couple of ways to use Elkanon boxes, which are mentioned in the O'Connor text, to do some phonemic awareness activities that do have an actual manipulative component. So tune in for the next video.